Okay, so getting started, this is the camera bag that the Panasonic DVX will come in when you check it out from the equipment lab. And this is the Panasonic DVX camera that we'll be using in class this semester. So before we get deeper into the camera, I want to show you the tripod that you'll have access to. So this is the Miller DVX tripod that you will be able to check out for use with the DVX camera. So to start, we will spread out the legs of the tripod. So once you have spread the legs out on the tripod, you will twist the ring on the leg that will allow you to extend the leg out. So you will extend each leg to the same length and tighten each ring after extending each leg. Fully spread out the legs and your tripod is now standing. Okay, so this is the head of the tripod and this is the tripod head arm. So to loosen the tripod head arm, you will loosen this screw, bring the arm up and tighten the screw back into place. Now you'll have the arm to be able to control use of the head of the tripod. So you want to make sure that's tightened all the way. Go up and down, left and right. This screw allows you to tighten the left and right motion of the tripod head so that it's stuck in place. When it's twisted in, you can move the tripod left and right. This screw does the same function for the up and down movement of the tripod. When it's tight in place, the tripod does not move up and down. When it is loosened, the tripod does move up and down.
These two knobs are your fluid drag controls. The lower knob controls the fluid drag for the left and right motion of the tripod head. The upper knob controls the up and down motion of the tripod head. If you tighten the lower knob and increase the drag, your left and right motion will be tighter. If you loosen the knob, your left and right motion will be much more fluid. The same goes for the up and down motion, tightening the top knob. Tightening the knob gives you a more rigid motion. Loosening the knob gives you a much more flexible motion.
So we're almost ready to get to the camera, but first we'll need to remove this plate from the tripod head. To do that, we'll loosen this yellow knob so that we can move this, but there's still a safety mechanism that does not allow the plate to come all the way off. The safety mechanism is found under the plate. It's the yellow switch, and we'll push that yellow switch in, which will allow us to completely remove the plate from the tripod head. To attach the plate to the camera, we will turn the DVX upside down on a secure surface. Take the plate and make sure that the image and text saying lens is facing in the direction of the lens on the camera when you begin to screw the plate onto the bottom of the camera. There's two screws on the bottom of the plate that correspond to two screw holes on the bottom of the camera. Begin to insert the screws into the holes using your fingers. You'll notice that the lens of the camera is positioned in the same direction as the yellow image of the lens on the bottom of the plate. Before you use the camera, you want to make sure that the screws are safely and securely positioned and inserted into the camera. You can use a quarter, a nickel, a screwdriver, or the head of a key to securely tighten the screws into place. Now we're going to attach the camera with the plate to the head of the tripod. So we'll go from the back of the tripod and we'll slide that forward. Once we hear that click, we know that the plate has been inserted into the head of the tripod. But we'll notice that there's still movement here. So to stop that movement, we'll tighten the yellow plate knob to stop that movement. Now the camera and plate are securely on the head of the tripod. So you'll need an SD card, which you'll be responsible for obtaining yourself, and a Dvx battery, which can be obtained in the equipment room. The battery compartment for the camera is located on the back of the camera and can be opened by turning the switch, pushing the switch to the right, opening the compartment. Now the battery is inserted with the arrow facing forward in this direction. Push the battery in and you'll hear a click. Now you can close the compartment. Once the battery is inserted, you can turn the camera on by flipping this switch to the on position. Now you're ready to insert the SD card. The SD card compartment is located on the left side of the camera. Open the SD card compartment. Remove your SD card from its case. The front of the SD card will face the back of the camera and be entered into the compartment like this. You'll push the SD card into the compartment and notice a red light indicating that it's been inserted correctly. You can now close the SD card compartment. We're now ready to look into the menu of the camera. We'll first take out the LCD monitor and face it towards us. Now there's two ways to engage with the menu on this camera. You can use this scroll function to scroll through the menu options, and you will push it in to select the menu option. The other option is the touchscreen function on the camera. Now when you turn the camera on, it might ask you to set time zone and date/time. This is not necessary, and you can press no on the touchscreen. Another important note is that while the LCD monitor is in use, your viewfinder will not be active. If you prefer to use the viewfinder, you'll need to close your LCD monitor and you'll be able to see the image through the viewfinder. You'll also need to know that before recording, you need to open the lens cover. The lens cover switch is located on the left side of the camera. Okay, so now that we've gone over how to set up the tripod and set up the camera on the tripod, we're going to get into the menu options and settings inside the camera. The first thing we're going to do is reset the camera to its factory settings. And the reason we're going to do this is because the person who checked out the camera before you might have adjusted the settings. They might not be taking this class, and we want to make sure that the settings we use are the settings that are required for the projects in this class. So because we're resetting to factory settings every time we use the camera, we do not need to set date and time, so we'll go ahead and click no. So the way we're going to get into the menu is by pushing the menu button on the left side of the camera. Once you press the menu button, the menu option screen will come up, and we're going to scroll down to other function. Click other function, and then we'll scroll down to initial set. We'll click on initial set and we'll go to all, and we'll go ahead and select that. They'll ask us return all menu settings to their initial menu settings. Okay to continue. We do want to do this, so we're going to go to yes and go ahead and click that. We'll allow the camera to reset. It'll turn off to restart. And it'll ask us again, set time zone and date time. We don't need to do this, so we'll go ahead and click no. So the next thing we're going to want to do is format our SD cards. So what that's going to do is erase all information that's currently on the SD card. So before we do that, we want to make sure that any footage that we've shot that is on that SD card has been saved onto an external hard drive, because once we format this card, that information is permanently erased. So menu, other function, format media, select card. So your SD card is in slot 1, and go ahead and select that. It's going to make sure, do you want to format this card? So think about whether or not you've saved all the information that's on it. If you have, go ahead and click yes. It's going to triple check. Formatting the card will erase all contents. Do you want to continue? If you're sure, go ahead and click yes. Allow it to format. Finished. So you can go ahead and click exit. So the next option that we're going to want to set for the camera is going to be the record mode. So to get to record mode, we're going to go to the menu again. We're going to go to System Mode. We're going to go to Record Mode. So now we're here, we've got a few options. We've got MOV, MP4, and AVCHD. So these are just formats that you can record in. MOV is good, but it's typically used for Mac. It was developed for Mac. So we want to use something that's compatible with both Windows and Mac, and that has a good file size that's not going to be too big for us. MP4 is going to be what we're going to use for our projects in this class. So we'll go ahead and select MP4, and now our record mode is set. So we can go ahead and press the menu button again to go back to the main screen. Press it one more time. So now the next setting we're going to change is the record format. We're going to go again to System Mode. We're going to go to Record Format. So there's a lot of different options here. These are just also formats that you can record in. Do you want to record in 4K? Do you want to record in 2K? Do you want to record in 1080? So these are just the quality of the image that you're recording in. They're going to also correspond to file size. So the higher the quality of the image, 4K, the higher the file size. So for the purpose of this class, we only want to shoot in 1080. And we're going to be shooting in 23.98 frames per second. To get to that, we're going to scroll down. So FHD, 1080, 23.98p, and 50M. So we're going to go ahead and select that. Go ahead. That now our record format is set. We're going to click the menu option, go back to the main screen. Next thing we're going to set is shutter speed. So the easy way to remember how to set your shutter speed is that shutter speed is double the frames per second. So if we're at 23.98, which we're going to call 24 frames per second, our shutter speed is going to be set at 1/48. So we're going to call that a 48 shutter speed. So the way we set the shutter speed, we're going to use the shutter button that's on the left side of the camera and the scroll function. So I'm going to go ahead and press the shutter button. And once I press that shutter button, we'll notice on the bottom right of the screen over here, the shutter option is activated. So right now it's 1/12. So we want that to say 1/48. So I'm going to go ahead and use my scroll to change that to 1/48. And now I'm set. The next setting we're going to look at is the gain setting. And what the gain setting does is adjust the camera's sensitivity to light. So if we're at a low, we're going to have the lowest sensitivity to light. Medium and high are going to increase that sensitivity. allowing you to record in low light situations more easily. The downside to this though is that the higher the gain, the lower your image quality. So you're going to want to keep the gain setting at low as often as possible and adjust your lights to achieve the highest quality image. The next setting we're going to look at is the aperture, also known as the f-stop and the iris. So the way we're going to access this setting is by pressing the iris button on the left side of the camera lens. So to adjust the aperture settings, we're going to use the aperture ring, which is located at the back of the lens, the ring located closest to the body of the camera. So this is what we'll use here. Now we'll take a look at the image on the camera. The screen is currently black, and that's because, as we can read right here, the aperture is closed. As I adjust the aperture ring, we'll notice this number getting smaller and the image getting brighter. So what's happening here is that the aperture is opening and allowing more light to enter the lens. So if we open it all the way, we'll see how bright the image gets. And we'll get to what ND means in a minute. So this is a little bit too bright. So what the aperture allows us to do is adjust the lighting of our compositions by opening and closing the aperture to allow in the correct amount of light for a natural composition. The next setting we're going to look at is focus. So we want to make sure that our focus is manual. So automatic, where it currently is going to automatically have the camera choose what images to focus on. We want to be on manual. So we also have this infinite loop symbol. So if we go to that, you have to hold it down, and it tries to put everything in the image into focus all at once. We don't want to use that. We want to try out manual. So once we go ahead and click manual, it gives us access to the focus ring on the camera. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the image on the screen. Using the focus ring, I can decide what part of the image I want to be in focus. For example, I might want this bag to be in focus, or I might want this bag to be in focus. So using the focus ring, I have the ability to choose what part of the image I want to be in focus. So another setting we have access to is Focus Assist, and if I click on the Focus Assist button, this is what the screen looks like when I click that Focus Assist button. And we've got this magnified focus area at the center of the screen, and if I adjust the focus ring and I attempt to get the image in focus, it'll show me what's at the center of the image, and when we see these red dots start showing up, that's telling me that the more red dots there are, the more in focus the image is. So it helps you bring that image into peak focus. You want to get as much red as you can if that's the part of the image that you want to be in peak focus. So the last setting we're going to look at is the white balance setting. So what white balance does is adjust the way that the camera reads color, and it does that by balancing to the purest white available. So we've got three settings: preset, A, and B. So preset is the white balance that the camera comes set with, but we're going to manually set an A and a B white balance. So A we'll use for one type of the two lights, natural or artificial, and we'll use B for the other, either natural or artificial. So let's say we're going to set the A. So we'll switch to A, and the other button we're going to need is the auto white balance button at the front of the camera. So remember where that is. The next thing we want to do is point the camera at the purest white surface possible. We want to make sure that that white is well lit and in focus, and we're going to press the auto white balance button at the front of the camera. So we'll see the camera read white balance set OK, and we'll see the color of the image change. It's now balanced to the white with the light that we're using, either natural or artificial. Now we'll want to do the same thing, go to the B setting and set either now the natural or artificial light white balance setting again. Before we finish, I'm going to go over two more quick functions. First, the ND filter, the neutral density filter. So what the ND filter does, we'll look at the screen. So 164 is going to be the highest neutral density filter, the second, and the third. So we'll look at the screen now. So I've turned my neutral density filter off. If I click it to the first setting, 1/4, we'll see the image get darker. So we're functioning like sunglasses here on filtering out light. So I'm going to go to the next, 1/16. The image gets even darker. And if I go to the final setting, 1/64, we can barely see the image. So what this is doing is functioning to filter out some of the light that might be affecting your image. So you do have the option to use this, but sometimes it's best just to use no neutral density filter and get as much light as your camera needs. The last setting we're going to look at is the zoom setting. So we've got two settings here, manual and servo. So if we're switched over to servo, it gives us access to the zoom button here on the side of the camera. We'll see as I press this button, we zoom in and out mechanically. Okay, so if we switch to the manual zoom, we'll see that I have access now to the zoom ring on the lens of the camera. And if I go ahead and manually adjust the zoom ring, we can see the image zooming in and zooming out. Now that we've gone through all the menu options on the camera that we'll be using in class this semester, it's time to turn off the camera using the switch that we used to turn it on. The light will turn off and we'll make sure that the lens is closed. We'll loosen the plate switch on the bottom of the head of the tripod so that we can remove the camera and the plate from the tripod. We'll need to press in the safety switch on the bottom of the head. It's a yellow safety switch which will allow us to take the camera off the head of the tripod. Now we'll remove the plate from the bottom of the camera, put the plate back onto the tripod, fold our tripod back into the bag by closing it all and having it as it was when we removed it from the bag, and we'll do the same thing with the camera and the camera bag.